Hello and welcome to Wisdom Trek. This is Guthrie Chamberlain and I'm your guide to wisdom and creating a living legacy. Thank you for joining us for our 7-day-a-week, 7 Minutes of Wisdom podcast. This is day 249 of our trek, and today we will continue to remain at camp as we search for nuggets of wisdom found in the book of Proverbs. Yesterday we explored chapter 7 verses 10 through 20. Since each day's discussion builds on the previous one, if you do miss any of the Wisdom Trek episodes, please go to wisdom-trek.com to listen to them and to read the daily journal. As mentioned on previous days, Paula and I are refining the daily concepts along with the worksheets for your life plan blueprint, which we covered in the month of January, and we'll assemble it into an easy-to-use workbook. I'll let you know when it's completed so that you can download it. We are recording our podcast from our studios at home too in Charlotte, North Carolina. The hours just seem to fly by each day, and before I realize it, so much time has passed that it's time for me to make dinner. Dinner preparations is a time for me to sort of wind down for the day. I really enjoy preparing dinner, and we do strive to eat healthy each day. It is part of our overall life plan as we remain physically, mentally, and spiritually fit for a long time into the future. It does take consistent persistence as we pursue our life purpose to be a difference maker in our world. We were blessed to have our son Fred over for dinner on Tuesday evening, and it was a good time to get caught up on his daily life and routines. Let's now return to camp for a time of sharing and telling stories around the campfire. The fire is dancing off the logs, and I find it so mesmerizing. It's easy to get lost in my thoughts as I look at the flames. As the flames reach into the sky and the smoke is blown back and forth in a light breeze, it reminds me of the story that we will continue today in Proverbs chapter 7. The title of the story that we began 3 days ago is Another Warning About Immoral Women. Yesterday we left off on our story about a simple, naive young man who finds himself in the embrace of a beautiful woman who is also very convincing. She is dressed seductively and tells the young man that she has prepared her bed specifically just for him. The young man finds himself in a situation because of the choices that he made earlier that evening. And he may be thinking that this is really where he desires to be. But we are told that he lacks common sense, and we know that he's certainly thinking with his body and not his mind, but he still has a choice at this point. Does he stay or will he flee? Let's continue to see how our story unfolds in chapter 7, verses 21 through 27, and we'll break the passage down into two sections. As we start, unfortunately, he does not flee as we continue with verses 21 through 23. So she seduced him with her pretty speech and enticed him with her flattery. He followed her at once, like an ox going to the slaughter. He was like a stag caught in a trap, awaiting the arrow that would pierce its heart. He is like a bird flying into a snare, little knowing that it will cost him his life. We see that the naive young man did choose to remain. Her seductive and pretty speech was more than he felt he could resist. She enticed him with flattery, where he thought he was really something special in her eyes. This reminds me of Proverbs chapter 5, verse 3. For the lips of the immoral woman are sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. She certainly appears to be both sweet and smooth. Anytime that we make unwise choices, the outcomes of those choices are never what we thought they would be. In this story, we see a simple young man led away to the slaughter. He is caught in her trap and does not realize that it could literally cost him his life. While all sin grieves God, physical and sexual sin seems to have a deeper impact on us, and that's because it involves our body, our mind, and our soul as part of the act. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 18 through 20, it tells us to run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does, for sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. Don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God has bought you with a high price, so you must honor God with your body. Let's move on with our story in the last 4 verses of Proverbs chapter 7, where Solomon is addressing his sons once again. So listen to me, my sons, and pay attention to my words. Don't let your heart stray away toward her. Don't wander down her wayward path, for she has been the ruin of many. Many men have been her victims. Her house is the road to the grave. Her bedroom is the den of death. Solomon encouraged his sons to pay attention and learn from the story he shared with them. As we look at verse 25, remember that the heart and the mind are used interchangeably in the Bible. We see that he first tells them that they must control their minds because that is where sin is always planted first. If they do not control their minds, then their actions will follow. They will end up wandering down her wayward path. It is very clear here that this naive young man was not special to her because she has been the ruin of many. Many men have been her victims. In fact, her house is the road to the grave. Her bedroom is stacked full of bodies of men that she has brought down. Which reminds me of Proverbs chapter 30, verse 20, an adulterous woman consumes a man. Then she wipes her mouth and says, "What was wrong with that?" Were these men innocent? Absolutely not. If it were not for men's foolish decisions, there would be no prostitution. They are clearly without excuse. Do not ever blame anyone else for your unwise choices and the sin that may result. It all starts in the mind. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 tells us, "And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise." Let this story of a simple, naive young man who lacked common sense teach us lessons that we need to learn for life. Remember that both wise and unwise choices, sin and right living, all stems from what we plant into our minds. Plant good seeds and you will reap a harvest of right living. Tomorrow we will remain in camp and move on to Proverbs chapter 8, as wisdom calls for a hearing before the court or the city gate. So encourage your family and friends to join us and then come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. That'll finish our podcast for today. As you enjoy these daily doses of wisdom, I encourage you to help us promote Wisdom Trek in the following 4 ways. Leave us feedback about the podcast at wisdom-trek.com so that we can continually improve. Second, on your smartphone, subscribe at iTunes, Google Play, Spreaker, SoundCloud, or Stitcher so that the podcast will be downloaded to you automatically each day. Third, on your computer, or if you have an iPhone or iPad, please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. This will help to spread the word so that others will join us on our Wisdom Trek. And fourth, most importantly, please share Wisdom Trek with your family and friends through email, Facebook, Twitter, or in person as you meet with them, and invite them to come along with us each day. The journal for today's trek can be found at wisdom-trek.com. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, but most importantly, you are my friend, as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal each day. As we take this trek together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. This is Guthrie Chamberlain reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and then create a great day every day. See you tomorrow.